Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to have our first class or first discussion in our subject EAPP or English for Academic and Professional Purposes. And my name is Miss Mary Ann Nicole Idan, and you can also call me Mom Nicole or Miss Nicole. So, welcome to our EAPP class. I hope that you will learn a lot of things from this class. It can be from me or from your other classmates. And I also hope that I could also learn from you because I believe that learning is a two-way process, so we could learn from each other. Now, class, I have asked you yesterday to watch this video from YouTube, and that is entitled Academic versus Non-Academic Writing. And I also asked you to describe academic writing in one word. Actually, I was not expecting for a right or wrong answer because I was just asking for your insights or your understanding based on the video that you have watched, or maybe based on your stock knowledge. Now, class, let's proceed with introduction to academic writing. When we say academic writing, it is any written work produced in an academic setting. So, for example, you are writing uh, papers at school, specifically or especially when you are writing formally in a formal setup. So, for example, those are the essays or research or theses or articles. So, those are academic texts and it involves academic writing. Now, class, let's proceed with the nature and structure of academic writing. So, what are the natures or characteristics of academic writing? So, we have the first one. Okay, so it begins with clear assumption. Okay, when we say assumption, it is not just the kind of assumption that you're just going to assume things, just like how you assume that your crush also has a crush on you. So when we say academic text, it begins with a clear assumption. So before you start writing, you have this clear assumption in you that this is what you believe. This is what you're trying to point out. This is what you want your readers to know. Okay? So um, for example, your assumption is um, online distance learning is harder than the face-to-face mode of learning. So for example, that is your clear assumption. That is very clear. Now, class, when you are writing, uh, right from your introduction to your body and until your conclusion, you must have that clear assumption, okay? It must not be changing. So dapat mapanindigan nyo po kung ano yung inassume ninyo right from the start. And class, it is not just assumption, but it must rely on several sources. So to make your assumption valid, you must rely or you must depend or you must have different resources or sources. So it can be textbooks, it can be an online resources, or it can be the expert persons on that specific field. Next, you should also use formal words. So, the colloquial or slang words are not acceptable when you are writing academic text. So, gay lingos are not acceptable. So, it is very opposite to non-academic writing, okay, or non-academic text because academic text it is more on professional way of writing. So that's why we have English for academic and professional purposes. So it's more on academe, it's more on the writings or the texts in school. You're writing in school or you're reading in school, and it can be those writing that involves professional purposes. Okay. Next, you should also end with valid conclusion. So, class, if you begun with a clear assumption, you must end with a valid conclusion. So, definitely, that kind of conclusion is based on your assumption. So, for example, you assume or you have that clear assumption that online distance learning is harder than the face to face mode of learning. That conclusion will only be valid if you have the evidences. So you should have several sources, as what I've said earlier. Okay, so to make that conclusion valid. Okay, so you might cite for the facts, you might cite uh, for example, you might cite really the reality, the situation, comparing the uh, online distance learning and comparing the face-to-face mode of learning. You might interview teachers or some experts in that field. You may have a survey to make that conclusion valid. Okay? Now, class, let's have this structure of academic text. So this is it shows uh, it shows how your academic text looks like. First, we have the description. So, the author describes a topic by listing characteristics, features, and examples. So, for example, we have the online distance learning. So if you're writing a topic about online distance learning, then and your structure is description, definitely all you have to do is just to give your readers the picture of what your topic looks like or all about. So you will describe what are the characteristics of online distance learning. You will also give examples of how the activities are being conducted. You should also give the features. So, what are the materials? What are the apps? What are the websites that they would use to have that online distance learning? So, that's description. You are giving them the picture of something. Okay? Next, we also have sequence. So, in this type of writing or this structure of academic text, you're only giving something in a chronological order, or you are listing items or events by sequence. So for example, I am writing an article about how to apply for a college. Okay, so for example, I will give a short introduction about applying college, and then I will give the lists. For example, first you have to go to for example, www.cabsu.com if you are applying in Cabsu. Okay. Second, you need to fill out the form, and then third, you need to submit all the requirements. So it is an example of the sequence structure of academic text. So another example is, for example, you are writing about the top ten places in the Philippines. Okay, or yes, in the Philippines. So you will write it in a chronological way. So order, or you may start from top one, or you may start from top 10 to top one. So that's the sequence. All right. Next, comparison. So the author explains how two or more things are alike or how they are different. For example, you are comparing, your topic is about the government, and specifically it is the government of the Philippines and government in the US or USA. Okay, so if the structure of academic text is comparison, then definitely you are just comparing or seeing the similarities and differences of the US government compared to Philippine or to our government, how they are alike, how they are the same, and how they are different in what aspects. So that's comparison. Or another example is, for example, you are comparing the modern Filipino women to ancient Filipino women. So you are just going to compare in what aspect do these women are alike or they are the same, and in what aspect do these women are different. Okay. Next, we have this problem and solution. So the author states a problem and lists one or more solution of the problem. So definitely in this problem and solution, this structure of academic text has one problem, and you will cite it can be one or more solutions for that problem. For example, our problem is poverty. Okay, and if you are writing for a problem and solution structure of academic text, then you need to propose, or you need to list one or more solutions for the poverty. Okay, so that's problem and solution. Next, we also have cause and effect. So the author lists one or more causes and the resulting effect or effects. So, for example, let's have the same issue, the poverty. So, you will cite what could be the causes of that poverty. Is that lack of education? Is that because of our government? Is that because of our economics? What? What else? And you will also um, cite, or you will also discuss the effects of the poverty. So, what will be the effects of poverty in our country? Are there a lot of people who are starving? Are there a lot of people who are able to survive, or is there it is does it have something to do with the diseases that we have or that this country may have, or does it affect our economy? Okay, so those are the five structures of academic text. We have the description, sequence, comparison, problem and solution, and cause and effect. Now, class, let's proceed with the purpose or purposes of academic writing. Now, class, when you are writing, definitely before you begin writing, you must have this purpose. Why are you going to write this, or for what purpose you're going to write this kind of text? Okay, so we have three purposes, and the first one is persuasive purpose. I will just read the bullet. Purpose: to get your readers to adopt your answer to the question. In other words, uh, when you are writing in a purpose of persuasion or persuasive purpose, you are writing so that your readers will adopt what you also believe, so that your readers will believe what you also believe, and that is persuasive purpose. Okay. Next, how are you going to do that? You will choose one answer to your question and support it. So, for example, we have this issue. Usually, the examples are the argumentative and position papers. So, for example, the issue is about the anti-terror bill. Now, class, between agree and disagree, okay, so you will choose on which side you are. So, for example, you agree with that anti-terror bill. Now, class, you have to support your answer. Anti I why do you think anti-terror bill should be taken effect in our country? So, in order for you to persuade your audience or to convince them to also believe in what you believe, you should have supporting evidences for that. Okay, you should support your answer, and that is the persuasive purpose. So, if you believe that anti-terror bill is good for our country, then your readers must also believe that it must be uh, taken effect too, okay, as what you believe. So that's persuasive. So if you are reading newspaper, I do really suggest that you will read newspapers, and then you will find the editorial part there, because that editorial section has um, that editorial section is perfect for those academic texts in persuasive purpose, because the editors really tries, or the editors are really convincing their readers to believe what they are also believing, and those editorial writings are more on about the politics. So that's an example of persuasive. Okay, next, we also have this analytical purpose. So it explains and evaluate possible answers to your question. So how are you going to do that? You will choose the best answers based on your own criteria. So the examples of that are analysis papers and critical analysis. So plus, for you to have an example, okay, I will use the research that I have done during my college years. So my topic on my research, it was my individual research, is about the factors affecting teenage pregnancy. Again, factors affecting teenage pregnancy. So it was the title of my research, and it was an analytical purpose. Why? Because if you are going to read this, you will explain and evaluate possible answers to your question. The question there is, what are the factors affecting teenage pregnancies? So definitely the question I am referring here when I wrote this question is the problem, okay? Or the issue. Okay, so So the issue there is the teenage pregnancy. And what are the possible answers for that? So I have written, I forgot the five factors, but what I can remember is the peer pressure, wherein I also have explained what are those factors, okay? Um, when we say peer pressure, those it is the reason that um, it is one of the factors why teenage girls um, undergo or experience teenage pregnancy. So when we say when we say peer pressure, it is where since their friends are also doing that, they are pressured to do the same. Okay, since their friends are having this jowa as early as they can, so they would also have it. And because their friends are doing the thing that they should not do outside the marriage, then uh, they would also do the same. Okay, and that's the reason why they experience teenage pregnancy. So it is only one of the factors. The second one is the age discrepancy. For example, um, I am a teenage girl, and then I have a more matured boyfriend. Let's say he is already 30 or 40s, and because of that age discrepancy or age gap, it pushes me to uh, experience the teenage pregnancy. So that's the second factor. I forgot the third, the fourth, and the fifth. Okay, but uh, when we say analytical purpose, so we have these possible answers. So those factors I have discussed on my research are the possible answers for that question or for that problem or for that issue. But you will just choose one best answer based on the criteria. Now, how am I going to choose the best answer? I am not going to decide that by my own. It's like it's not that I think it should be age discrepancy. I think it is age discrepancy. But what I've done there is I have done a survey in order for me to identify what factor is really the most uh, what factor really affects the most or causes the teenage pregnancy the most. Okay, so I have done the survey. I ask those students or if they know someone who have been pregnant at their teenage years, or I also ask if they have really experienced that, if they gone through teenage pregnancy. And so the most cause or the factor that is most affecting teenage pregnancy was the peer pressure, and that is based on the what do you call this? That is based on the survey that I have gathered. So that is the analytical purpose. So there can be a lot of solutions or answers to that problem or to that question, but there must be only one best answer for that. Okay, that's how we're going to do when you're writing analytical texts. Next, last one, but this is the easiest between the three purposes, and this is informative purpose. When we say informative, it only explain possible answers to your question. It only explain. Oh, sorry. How are you going to do? So it only you're going to just give them the information that they need, or the information that you think are necessary for them to understand the specific issue or topic. So, for example, is the reports, books, and reference text. Now, class, compared to persuasive purpose and analytical purpose, here in informative, all you have to do is just to inform your readers. You don't have to convince them, you don't have to explain a lot of things or think for the best possible answer, but you just have to give them the information. So another examples of that are the articles or the news. When you're reading the newspapers, you have this the news writing or the news itself. Because when you are reading the news, or even when you are just watching news at the TV, so they're just giving you the information. For example, the article is about the man shot dead along the streets of for example, uh, General Emilio Aguinaldo. Okay, for example. So that article is just giving the statement or giving the facts or giving the details about that incident. You don't need to convince your audience that that is an act of terror bill. You don't need to convince them. Only you're just going to state what happened or what are the details involved in that specific incidents. So that is informative purpose. So for example, you're also just giving them the idea or the information about the online distance learning. Then that's informative purpose. You're just describing it, you're just telling what it is all about or how do you do that. That's informative. You're just informing your readers. So that those are the three purposes of academic writing. We have the persuasive, analytical, and informative purpose. Now class, let's have the strategies in reading academic writing. So we have four. I know some of you are already familiar with this, so let's just review this. When we say paraphrasing, it is the type of writing wherein you are restating an idea or concept or a phrase from the other person, and you are rewording it or you're changing it into your own words. So the reason why we have to paraphrase is for us to avoid committing plagiarism, because it is not allowed. Plus, be serious about this. It is not allowed to just copy and paste the informations you are getting in, whether it's whether if it's in the internet or whether if it's inside the textbook. Okay, because for example, class, I am the owner of the idea that modular distance learning is harder than the face to face because, for example, uh, because it gives you a lot of paperwork. Just for example, just an example, okay? So if you will use that a statement exactly what I have said, then I could sue you, okay, in in plagiarism, okay? So in order for you to avoid plagiarism or committing plagiarism, you should paraphrase those ideas or those thoughts, concepts that you are reading or that you have gathered from the other person. You should not take it as your own, but you should just reword it or rephrase it. So another strategy to avoid plagiarism is you need to always cite or give proper acknowledgement. So, for example, you will say, according to Miriam Defensor, okay, there must be always an acknowledgement. Acknowledgement for the author, acknowledgement for the book, or for any other resources. Okay, so when we say paraphrasing, it is restating someone's idea into your own words, but you're not going to steal it as your own. You're just restating it into another words. So you can still use according to Miriam, we should prepare for the pandemic budget, pandemic bills, or pandemic fund. Okay, just an example. Another one, we have summarizing. So I know that summarizing is very easy to describe because a lot of you have already done, or all of you have already done summarizing. So when we say summarizing, you are just writing what the material or the text is all about. Okay, so for example, this is the text. You will just squeeze it and tell what it is all about. Okay, then that's summarizing. Next, synthesizing. When we say synthesizing, class, it is like, for example, in song, you are taking one song and another song and another song, and you're going to remix them, or you're going to create a mashup in order to create a new song, okay, or a new cover. So in academic writing, when we say synthesizing, you are using an idea, another idea, or for example, theory to create a new theory or to create a new conclusion or concept. So that is synthesizing. For example, um, you are studying about the or development among the learners or learners development. Okay, so for example, you use the theory of Sigmund Freud, you use the theory of uh, Jean Piaget, you also use the theory of Lev Vygotsky, and then you will combine them all using the ideas they are trying to tell us or the theories they have. Then you will combine them to create a new theory of your own. So that's synthesizing. It is all right if you're going to use a theory, concept, ideas of other persons or other writers. Just make sure, class, that you will have or you will give proper citation so that you will avoid plagiarism. Okay? And lastly, we have outlining. So when we say outlining, it is like the backbone of the material or backbone of what you are writing or what you are reading is all about. Okay? So when we say outlining, it contains, for example, the main topic, and then we have here the supporting details. Okay, so that those are outlining. So maybe you could search for that if you are not familiar with outlining. Okay, but for example, Klasa, you are writing an essay. Outlining is very important when you are writing an essay because it keeps you on track. So when we say outlining, it's like you are building a house and the outline is your foundation. Okay, or the outline is your, what do you call this, for the engineers, or sorry, maybe for the architects, it is their, what do you call, their drawings, their plan. Okay, so it out when you have this outline, when you are writing something, it is like already your plan, so it keeps you on track on what you are writing. So for example, um, you're going to write about uh, what topic do we have? For example, you're writing about the coronavirus or the effects of COVID-19 in the Philippines. So before you start writing an essay, you may create an outline. So how are you going to do that? First, you will, for example, write um, Roman numerals, I or 1, and then you will write introduction. So what are you going to include with your introduction? First, for example, you will discuss or you will give a short description of what is COVID-19. And then the next, for example, you will also include how it affects us. And then and then in the next category, we have the body. So what will be included in your body? It can be the body of your essay. So it can be the solution, or it can be the problems, it can be the effects already of the coronavirus. Okay, or it can be an example instances or the situation that we have in reality. Okay, and then in your conclusion, so what will you include in your conclusion? Are you going to uh, are you going to sum up everything? Of course, you have to sum up everything. And are you going to leave a strong statement, or are you going to leave your readers a question? So it can be like that. So again, in outlining, it is a backbone of your material. So it guides you how are you going to write your academic texts purposefully, without you being like, oh my goodness, what am I writing about? It's like I already lost the thought. Okay, so outlining will help you to keep on track. Okay, so if you have questions or clarifications about this discussion or about this topic, you can just email me at this email address, or you can also send me a personal message or ask me on our group chats. Thank you for listening.